Hello. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Hi. Oh, that's pretty perky. Okay, good. So thank you so much for coming here so very early in the morning on your Saturday to be here with me. There's a couple of housekeeping items I want to get out of the way before I get started. The first one is, I know that we don't have Wi-Fi, but my question is, do you have Wi-Fi? If you have Wi-Fi, put up your hand. Okay. So if you don't have Wi-Fi, make sure you're sitting next to someone who does. And I'm going to ask you to Google or look in your app store, whether you have Android or iPhone, for Pop app. I noticed the contrast is not very good. It's P-O-P-A-P-P on either the Android Play Store or on the iTunes Store, and download that app if you can. If not, don't stress yourselves. It's going to be fine. The second thing is that I know I speak very quickly. English is my first language, but it may not be yours. I live in Germany. My German's not very good. So if you need me to slow down, please don't suffer. Just stick your hand in the air, yell out, slow down. I will appreciate it. Everyone will suffer less at this hour. Great. Welcome to my talk. It's called Unboxing UX, Prototyping for Engineers. It's a very, very, very basic beginner's introduction to two tools, which I think will be helpful for you as an engineer to prototype at very high speeds. They're design tools, not engineering tools. They're not code-based tools. They're incredibly basic. So hopefully they'll be useful for you when it comes to rapidly putting together different kinds of applications. That's about it. So my name is Rachel. I'm a UX designer. I'm on the Google Chrome UX team. I work out of the Munich office, and I spend a lot of my time in Mountain View. So what I work on primarily is finding ways for users to better understand software, for us to design software that creates a good connection between our backend and our users. So I'm here today to talk about a problem that we all have. I'm going to give us a little introduction first to why I want to show you some prototyping tools, and then I'll show you the tools themselves. So the first thing I want to touch on is that design can be a black box for engineers. While we're often considered to be the we designers are often considered to be the owners of the user experience, engineers are responsible for implementation of the back end and the front end. So no matter how innovative the technology and how elegant the design, it's the implementation where it all comes together. And if the design and engineering teams aren't in sync, then everything falls apart. So in contrast to this, Google's UX successes often tend to represent incredible feats of engineering rather than just user experience. One good example is Google Search. The search itself is based largely on speed and simplicity. And this speed and simplicity goes far beyond the visual design and the user experience design. It's a lot more about the responsiveness of our technology and the performance. So, in fact, performance is the user experience. There's a lot of great talks that touch on this fact. As engineers, this is probably the most interesting part of user experience for you. If I were you, I would take a look at some of the talks from Interaction 14, which is actually a design user experience conference. In particular, there's someone named Giles Colburn who talked about efficiency. That talks about how users, their experience changes dramatically when the software is not responsive. So even a delay of less than a second can dramatically change how users experience your software. So my main point from this slide is that we need designers who are passionate about brilliant technology, and we also need engineers who are passionate about incredible user experience and performance. I'm going to talk a little more. There's one more example about how, for engineers, user experience should also be a really important point to understand as in depth as humanly possible. Of course, you have your own background, but I think the best example of user experience being a product of great design and engineering is the Omnibox. So that's the search bar thing at the top of the page here that I'm talking about. And it combines the search and also the address bar, which sounds like not a big deal now, but at the time was a huge innovation. So the story that I want to tell is about Peter Casting, who is an engineer on the Chrome UX team in the early days. This is a story from my manager, Glenn, who was, I guess, the first designer on Chrome. He was actually an engineer. So the feature that I want to talk about is called inline autocomplete. It's this feature in Google Chrome where if you type in something to the address bar, it completes what you're going to say before you even knew what you were going to tell it. So this was a pretty controversial idea at the time when it was proposed by Peter Casting, and it wasn't even clear that it would work. In fact, the UI team actually designed something else entirely, but Peter felt really strongly about what he'd created, so he went ahead and made it anyway. And it worked better than what the UX team had designed. So he was kind of later became the poster child for engineer-driven design. And I think that kind of brings me to a point that I was going to make, but maybe is a different point now. So this is the slide that I first made when I started researching this talk. It says, great UX relies on feats of engineering. And when I originally wrote the talk, I thought this. But then I talked to Glenn, and he said instead that great user experience and great front end is actually both a design project and an engineering project. It's the same thing. So yeah, as Glenn would describe it, UX and front end are the same thing, which pisses off everyone in the whole room, but it's a really good point. What I wrote was, when we challenge each other and work together on the same team, our outcome is better. So what I mean by that is, I've worked at a lot of design agencies in the past, and I've also worked at Google, and on projects where designers and engineers are working together. In the agency world, and often in a lot of companies, the model for working between designers and user experience professionals and engineering is to design something and throw it over the wall. This is the wall. But my point is that when we do that, my experience again and again has been the designers design something the engineers can't make, and the engineers implement something that pisses off the designers, and everybody's all frustrated in the end and nothing works out. So what I want to encourage all of you to do is to work really closely with your designers and learn how to work closely with them in a way that makes both of you happy. So in the end, you come out with a product that works well for users and is fun to make as well. So that's kind of my whole thesis for the talk. User experience is a shared vision between design and engineering. A lot of people have said this again and again, but I think that it's still something that's actually hard to do on a day-to-day basis. It takes a really, really talented engineer to be able to see that transformation between the backend, the structure of the technical design, and the user interface design. And often it requires a really tight collaboration between UX and engineering, especially when the products are incredibly complex, very early. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this thing that we're doing at the Munich office. So I work with a team of designers in the Mountain View office, but I also work with a big group of UX designers in Munich. And all of us one day came together and said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could help introduce all of our engineers to user experience so they know what we're talking about? Because all of us work with different engineers who come from very different backgrounds, and some of them are really savvy with UX, and some of them want to focus on their own thing, and that makes a lot of sense too. So we put together a course that would introduce everyone to some of the basic fundamentals of UX. And we've basically gone through a pilot so far of training 60 engineers. And so this kind of process is something pretty hands-on. So basically my point here is we take about 8 hours to train 30 engineers through this one-day class. And it gives them the very, very, very basics. So I just want you to have some perspective for the talk today. We're less than an hour, so I'm going to give you the very, very basics, and hopefully help you get started learning about user experience. So here's what we're going to talk about today. First, I'm just going to touch very briefly on the design process or the product development process or whatever process I go through on a regular basis. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the tools I use. Then I'm going to go and look a little more in depth at the Pop app. If you all have it, we're going to do a little try it out, and if not, then I'll just show it to you. Then we're going to look at Keynotopia, which is another tool that you can use for prototyping. And then I'm going to talk very briefly about user testing. It was rather contentious about whether I would talk about user testing today. I think, I talked to a few user researchers about this, and they said, oh, I never have any contact with engineers, and the engineer said, I never have any contact with researchers. And I'm always kind of the person in the middle. But I think that helping engineers and designers both understand user research means that you can often unblock yourself and talk with the researcher and ask for the things that you need. So I'm just going to touch on it very briefly, and then I'm going to wrap it all up. So that's the plan. Oh, and if you have any questions, stick your hand in the air. If there's too many, then I'll make you save them till the end. Okay, so here's kind of a very rough sketch of the design process. Step 1 is over here. I don't know why. It's about discovering. It's about understanding strategically what you want to do. So that means doing research to understand your user needs. You know, when you're working at a big company, it often means understanding what the business needs are, and understanding also the marketplace. So if there's existing products or software that has a better technical solution or a better user interface, then often we'll have a look at that. And we'll develop a point of view on what we want to make. So that means, you know, for Chrome, that was about, at the time that it was made, it was about innovating in the 3 S's, simplicity, speed, and security. Now it's often about, you know, what is going to be the direction of technology today. So that's step 1. Step 2 is ideate. So that often means to brainstorm solutions. That could mean anything from sketches and sticky notes to creating high-fidelity mock-ups. I do a lot of that on a day-to-day basis. There's also a lot of storytelling stuff, so thinking about, you know, what are every step of the user experience, and that doesn't necessarily just mean the software. That could often mean, you know, where's the person going to download the software? You know, are they going to use it outside? Are they going to use it at home? All these contextual details also come in at this point. And the other note on here that I want to touch on is a design sprint. So design sprints are a process that I've been using more and more at a day-to-day basis. I used them a lot at agencies in the past, but they're also something that we're using very frequently now at Google. You can take a look online. There's a great talk by, I think, Jake Knapp or Jake, oh my goodness, I forget their names. The Google Ventures design boys, but the guys at Google Ventures are the ones who kind of created the design sprint. They give a talk. There was one at I/O and there's one at the Push conference in Munich. I think they're both online by now. And the talk is about, you know, how to do a design sprint. And this is something that, you know, in the past people have kind of assigned to design agencies to bring in, you know, some designers and some product managers, and they're all gonna, you know, work together with marketing and come up with the new thing. But actually, we conducted a design sprint at the beginning of last quarter, so 2 months ago, with my engineering team, and it was phenomenal. We came out with a product that we're going to, basically a feature for our product that we're going to build and launch. I think working together with the engineering team to do these kinds of design processes, these are very sort of short, condensed design processes. It makes a huge difference in whether we come up with features that are sort of innovative technologically as well. So if you are interested in design, take a look at that talk. I'll tell you in just a moment what a design sprint is. And always encourage the designers you're working with to bring you into the process. First, because it's fun, interesting, and you can sort of explore what technology can do, but also, and more importantly, because it brings you into the process early on. So you don't, you know, halfway through your product development process, show up in the room and the designer says, here's what we're going to build, and you go, Okay, so a design sprint, very quickly, is a short process designed to flesh out a very, very precise idea. So designers often work with very general design briefs. So design an application that lets people buy gifts. That's pretty general. A design sprint is something that's a lot more specific. So it says something like, you know, we have 2 days. We're going to work together to prototype, you know, a mobile app to help people buy an online gift that's specifically a ring for their wife for their wedding in 5 minutes. So it's a lot more precise, and it always results in some kind of physical, testable prototype. So that's the design sprint. Check it out. Okay, so tools that designers use. These are the tools that I often use: Illustrator and Photoshop, Sketch, Xur, Tumult Hype, After Effects. So these are all professional grade, you know, illustration, image editing tools. After Effects and Adobe Edge, Tumult Hype as well, are all animation tools. So After Effects is actually a movie editing tool, but it's one of the most powerful animation tools, so I often use that. These are things that you could learn if you wanted to. I'm not going to teach you them today, and the reason is that they take years to really handle well. You can, of course, get your hands on them, test them out, try them out. They're great for even the most basic stuff as well. Yeah, I'm a little tentative to show you Photoshop because it's very finicky. After Effects is the most finicky software I've ever used. But if you're excited about those things, then I would definitely encourage you to check out, see, Video Copilot is the best tutorial site for After Effects, and lynda.com course, for Photoshop, Illustrator, all of those. Anyway, but what I'm going to talk about today is something that you can use by tomorrow. So these are the two tools we're going to look at. The first on the right-hand side is called Pop App, and on the left is Kinotopia. I'll tell you what these things are and what you can do with them, and then if you can all download Pop App, then we'll just take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and try it out as a group. Okay, so Pop App. Pop App is a super amazing tool. I'm really excited about Pop App because it lets you, prototype a piece of software that you want to make in about 5 minutes. It's extremely lo-fi. It's extremely basic. It's just an application that you can run on your iPhone or Android phone or I think whatever phone. I think they have a Windows Phone version now. And all you have to do to use it is to sketch out your wireframes on a piece of paper, take a picture of them, and then you take those pictures, upload them into the app, and you link them together. So you can essentially create an app that someone can click through and try out in a few moments. Why should you use it? Because it's incredibly fast and easy. Anyone can use it. You can use it in your design sprint with your designers. You can use it on your own with your team to try out an application before you invest any time and energy in coding it. And it helps you sort of work out both the user interface and also what features do you need. So yeah, I'll just show you a little video of it. This is what it looks like. That's it. Okay, can I get a show of hands to see if you've been able to download it or not? Downloaded? Yes? Okay, that's probably good enough. All right, cool. I'm gonna go through pros and cons and talk about that quickly, and then we're gonna try it out. I can. Oh, you guys, I'm so blind. This is not gonna work at all. Not that one. That one. Good. Thanks. Okay. I broke my glasses. Okay. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the background of when to use this and when to not. It seems really basic, but there's some pro tips that are gonna make your life easier. So first, I said already, it's very fast and easy to use. But the most important thing is. If you are going to get early stage feedback on a concept that you want to create, this is a good way to go. So that means, if you have either an idea and you're kind of sure about how, or kind of not sure about how to design it, but you are sure that the idea is good, that's one time to use this. But even if you're not sure about the idea itself, it's a good time to use this. And the reason for that is because this looks like you're just getting started. It seems pretty basic, but the most important thing is if people see that you've done something really polished and beautiful, if you spend a lot of time coding it or you have really beautiful mock-ups, they're not going to give you the kind of feedback you're looking for. If you have something that looks really unpolished, like you just sketched it, it's obviously really easy, then people are going to feel comfortable enough to tell you, like, I'd never use this, or I would use this. So it's a good way to get honest feedback. It's not a good time to use this if you want to get detailed feedback on the usability of your application. If you want to get a general idea of the structure, that's good. But if you really have it all worked out already and you kind of want to see if people can really use the thing that you've already made or you're going to make right away, it's not a good time to use this because they're not going to be able to give you honest or realistic feedback. Okay, so everyone has the app now, or a lot of people have the app now. If you don't, just sit next to a neighbor. Does anyone have any paper? I've just realized this. Oh my goodness. Okay. Anyway, there's a demo app, or there's a demo sketches already in the application. My God, I assumed that we would have paper in a room like this. That's okay. There's a demo. There's some demo images in the application already, so you can test those out. If you have paper on hand, you could sketch the interface for a simple note-taking app. So maybe, here are my notes files, and here's my note-taking screen. Just sketch it out, take the pictures, put them in the app, and test out the linking. Stick your hand in the air if you can't figure it out. Okay. So who feels like they've got it figured out? No problem. Ooh. Okay, who has a question? Any questions? Who needs a little more time to play with it? Who's feeling tired and sleepy? Okay. Let's do this. So I'm going to continue, finish up the talk, and then at the end we have about 15 to 20 minutes of question period. So what we can do is we can take another 5 or 10 minutes if we want to keep playing with it, and I can answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, then I'll just let you have question time or a coffee break. All right. Cool. So that was pretty easy. I'm going to also, I don't know what this slide is for. This is the conclusion slide. I'm going to move on to Kenotopia. So Kenotopia is actually just a different set of templates. I think they have 4 or 5 different templates that you can download from their website. They cost money, but they're pretty affordable. They have a variety of different packs. So there's like Android, iPhone, like phone packs. They have tablet packs. I'm not sure if they have desktop packs, but they have a variety of different templates for prototyping software. You can see here that this is the old Android template set. I think they just like the last day or so to a material design new Android set, so you can get the newest set of templates. So that's kind of what it looks like. They have everything you need in terms of all of the different components. They have phones, they have different UI components, they have icons, basically anything that you could need in terms of putting together a basic software application. They have that. If you need anything else, you can always draw it in application and create buttons or whatever you need. And the part that I like the most about Kenotopia is that you can add animations really easily. Of course, there's not a lot of like control and complexity in terms of things like the graph of your motion, but I think for a prototype, you don't really need something like that. You can, make the box move from one side of the screen to the other. You can make things smaller and larger. You can make it look pretty realistic, but just using PowerPoint, Keynote, and OpenOffice. So if you have any of those applications on your computer, you should be good to go. Yeah, I'm going to show you a little video of how it works. I'm not going to have us download and test it out today because it costs money, but also because you might want to look at the different options and choose which one you would buy if you wanted it. So I'll play a video. It's a really painful video, I'm sorry. His voice is very low and slow. It's a marketing video. I don't like that sentence, doing any design work. Something I just want to point out at that point. So things like this map here, normally if I was creating a prototype with HTML or CSS, I might actually put a map in there. But for this kind of thing, all you need to do is take a screenshot of the map you need. So remember, I give a talk about Wizard of Ozing it, which is creating prototypes that don't really work but look like they work. That's something that you need for testing with users. So keeping in mind that you're just trying to give people a basic idea and not try to make everything work. This is a really important point. When I was going to school years and years ago, it seems like a long time ago, I had a professor who would always tell us, just make it look like it works. Don't try to actually make it work, because we're a bunch of designers and we don't know how to code, although we would try. And after trying and failing to make stuff work a lot of different times, I realized that the ability to make stuff look like it works and have people understand what the product actually is a really important skill to have really early on. It helps you understand if the idea that you're building is really the right idea. And later on, it also helps you convince people that they're going to spend money on the idea that you have. So yeah.
Using slide transitions. But it doesn't stop here. By exporting your prototypes as clickable PDFs, you can test them on the iPhone or iPad without doing any extra work. This is one of the cheapest and fastest ways to test new product ideas without hiring freelancers or learning new tools and programming languages. Kenotopia are thousands of user interface components for prototyping web, mobile, and desktop applications. It's constantly updated, and all updates are free forever. All components are vector drawings designed from scratch in Apple Keynote, Microsoft PowerPoint, and OpenOffice Impress, so you can easily edit them and customize them without needing any additional tools.
Okay. So you get the idea. That goes on for a little longer, but now you understand kind of what it looks like. Ooh, there's a cursor somewhere. So just a quick pros and cons for this. It's also very fast and easy to use, but it's a little slower and obviously a little more complex than just drawing wireframes. You have to make some choices about, what colors, what typefaces. There's a little bit of choice making to do. But besides that, it's a lot higher fidelity than the Pop app or any other software that's just a wireframe-based software. So you can get something that really looks realistic, like the real thing, in a very short period of time. And what's great about it is you can get feedback on the details. So you can get feedback on, whether this detailed UX flow, this structure is going to work for people, whether they understand, what this button and what this string is trying to get them to do. So what's really cool about Keynotopia that it's also what they use the Google Ventures team with the Google Ventures team to prototype with different businesses. So it's probably the quickest thing to get a team of people to use who haven't used the same set of software before. Yeah, obviously the cons are that it's a little harder to build than just the Pop app, and of course you can't get really early stage concept feedback. If people see something really high fidelity, they tend to give you feedback that's more detail oriented. So lastly, when you can expect to use these tools, they're great to use when you're collaborating with designers. I find when you're trying to articulate how something should look or feel or work, people describe something, but often what they're describing and what's in their head, it's not the same thing entirely. So it can be really hard to get a group of people to agree on how something should look and feel and work without actually making or drawing that thing. So do that. If there's no designer around, if you have a team of people and you're trying to build something and you want it to look like the real thing, then prototype it like this first. It'll help you work out the details much faster than if you do it in code. Also, whenever you like, because they're fun to use, and if you want to make your own projects, it's great to test them out beforehand with this. Great. So just bringing us back to this process, I want to quickly touch on when you might use these kinds of tools, and the correct answer is obviously every stage. So I'm going to listen to a quick discussion about user research very briefly, but what I want to impress on you is just that I often do user research at every single stage of this process. So I work with researchers or I do a small, simple test on my own. So in the first stage, you might, for example, do strategic research with users to see if the concept that you're impressing on them is going to work, or to even find out what their needs are. So there's different research methods for that kind of thing. Second stage, the ideation. So you might test your early stage wireframes, your prototypes with people. When you're designing and iterating, when you're really making the product, you might build that product, test it with users, and see if it works in detail with them. So that's kind of a usability feedback stage. The fourth stage, to evaluate. So see not just does the product actually work with users, so getting like statistics about use, but also seeing how many people are using it. Can we grow the group of people that uses it? Are we seeing any opportunities to develop new products with the data that we've garnered from what we have here? So every stage is a good stage for user research, and you often always basically need prototypes to do user research. That early stage, discovering the needs finding research, is often not prototype based, but the other three phases are. So prototypes are good. Okay, so why am I going to talk at all about user research relevant to us? If design is a black box, then research is a black box in space. I know that very rarely do my researchers and the engineers that I work with ever talk. But I think it's really important that researchers, designers, and engineers can all have a conversation about the process they're a part of. And so that means all of us at least understanding the basics of what we're all doing. So yeah, why I understand it. UX and front end are one and the same, and a user researcher works closely with a user interface designer, UX designer. And then the second thing is getting yourself unblocked. So this is a quick point I want to make. I've heard a story a couple of times now from different engineering teams that I've worked with or that I haven't been working directly with. And that story is, yeah, we were basically all done. We had to make the last feature, but we were waiting for the user research to be completed. And I said, well, what kind of research was it? And they said, oh, I don't know. you know, we made a prototype, and we just wanted to see if users knew where the button was. And I said, well, you know, maybe you guys could have done that yourself. No, researchers hate it when I say do yourself, but if you understand how complex the research is that needs to be done, you can usually go to a designer and say, hey, you know, we need to do this test. The researcher's really booked up. Why don't you work with them? We can get it done. Often, you know, even working at one of the biggest companies in the world, resources are always a challenge, especially getting research and testing done. So understanding and being able to speak with people about, you know, how are we going to solve this problem is a really big deal. Okay, so this is a chart of a lot of different kinds of user research. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of different kinds of user research. We're not going to talk about all of these kinds of user research. But it's a lot more complex than I'm going to talk about today, so please don't go to any researchers and say, hey, I understand what you do, because it's really, really complex. But for me, the kinds of research that are important are these two kinds. So first is strategic and needs-finding research. This is actually a pretty big field, and we're not going to talk a lot about that. But there are a ton of different methods for helping understand what are users' needs, different kinds of users in different parts of the world, and you know, how are they going to use their software differently. So that's a whole field, and we're not going to talk about that today. But we are going to talk about usability research. So do people understand my application? Can they use it? This kind of fairly basic stuff. And this is something that you can learn more and more about yourself. I have engineers that I work with who are far better at this than I am. And they come to me and say, Rachel, did you really think about this? And I go, oh, nope. Yeah, you can be good at this. It would be awesome. So the big question I actually have gotten from engineers that I work with is, what does a user testing session look like? And it looks really, really, it looks like me sitting in a room with a person who came in from not inside the company and asking them to do things for me. Usually they have a phone or they're sitting in front of a computer, and I say, hey, what does this look like? And they tell me what they think the thing in front of them is. And I say, okay, can you, try to do this thing that I want you to do? And then they look for the button. Like, it's pretty basic, straightforward stuff. There's a person who has influenced my thinking about doing testing with users. His name is Seth Godin. He's a marketing type author in the US. I did an internship with him about 2 years ago now. And he has a pretty basic model for this that I really like. So you get a person, you put them in front of the software that you want them to use or you want people to use. And you say, can you tell me what this is? And they'll try to tell you what it is. And if they can't tell you what it is, which is a surprisingly high percentage of the time, you need to fix it. Then the second thing, this is what they're thinking when they're trying out your software, so you've got to try to get them to articulate. So you ask them, do you trust this thing? And what you're really asking them here is, what does this remind you of? If you look at studies about how users judge software very quickly, it's almost always about the visual design on that sort of first blush. And they look at a lot of things that make them decide whether or not to trust it. It's about the colors, it's about the typefaces, it's about the treatments. And it's a lot about, does this remind me of something that I often use? So if people trust your software, that's great. If not, you've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out why your type of users are not trusting the software you have. Next, it's what are you offering me? So when they come to the page, they know what this is and what can they get out of it. If they can't see what they're going to get out of it, they leave pretty quickly. And the last thing is, how do I get it? So if there's not, at this point, when they trust your website, they know what it is and what they're going to get. If there's not a big button that says, give me the thing, button that says give me the thing, then they're going to leave. So that's the pretty basic framework of things that your users are trying to understand. This is something you can test with people when you build software. And if it does all these things, it's going to work a lot better. Okay, so I have 2 more slides. This is a pretty short video of what user testing, what the experience of user testing is like for basically everyone who does it. So you don't feel bad. Okay, so I'm basically just about done here. I just want to point you to one resource. This is the best book that I've read so far about how to do user research, or user testing is probably a better way to describe it. It's a super short, very easy guide full of lots of resources that would let you, as a person owning a small business or a student, to test your product easily once a month with 3 hours of time and about $100. So that's that. Read that. There's a lot of resources online if you don't want to buy the book. Okay. That's everything we talked about today. And what I want to leave you with is this. So basically, all of us, designers, developers, and anyone else working in technology, we just want to make cool things that help people. So I'm hoping that this talk made that a little easier for all of you. That's all. Okay, so that's me if you want to find me on the internet. And I think we have 5 minutes left, maybe. If you have any questions, go. Just stand here awkwardly. All right. Cool. Oh. Yes, awesome. Oh, okay, so the question is, would we do that on a finished app or on a prototype? I would say both. So the difference is sort of thinking about this. I'm going to take us back to that diagram quickly, if I can. There we go. So thinking about each stage of, it would be better if this was a line, but if you think about, so stage 1, you want to be testing something that's really rough. So like low fidelity prototypes, pop apps, so stuff that sort of describes your early concept. Like second one, the same thing, like sort of getting more and more high fidelity as you move forward in the process. So, you know, by 2 or 3, maybe you're using Kinotopia or whatever high fidelity, or you've made some software and it looks more high fidelity. And then when you're finished with it, you want to be doing testing that's asking people more about details. So the beginning, do you want to use this? Do you trust it? Do you understand it? So on and so forth. Through to the end where you're, you know, people are telling you like, I don't like where this button is. This button should be a little further to the right. Yeah? That's a great question. Okay, so the question is, working on a small team, where do I find a designer who can help me with prototyping, for example, or designing? That's a hard question. A lot of companies have trouble with that question. It depends on who you are, how much money you're spending on your product, how much, you know, if you are a student and you don't have any money to spend on the product, you want to look for someone who's also a student and doesn't have any money to spend on the product. If you're working at a small company, you want to find someone who's passionate about, you know, making something that they have a lot of control over. So it depends on the type of person you're looking for. In terms of finding people, I might not be the right person to advise you. It just depends on which country you're in, where you're looking. There are some really interesting online resources at the moment, which I've been checking out. There are things like co-founder dating, this kind of thing. These types of websites, which are websites that pair up people who want to build things, tend to have a lot of people on them who are really passionate about actually making something. So they care more about, you know, making something that's really great and that they feel deeply about than they care about, you know, making a lot of money and working for a big company and this kind of thing. So those resources tend to be really great. The other place I would look is companies that you think are awesome. Make friends with the people who work at them. So go to, you know, if you know, the small startup company that you really think is awesome nearby is holding an open house event, or, you know, organizes some kind of community event, just go to the event, meet them. You know, maybe someone on their team wants to leave, or maybe they know someone who might be interesting for you. So make friends with people who do awesome stuff is my only advice there. Which one? Oh, this thing. Yeah. You can actually do better. Go to the Norman Nielsen group, like Google Norman Nielsen group user research methods. So this is not mine. This is the Norman Nielsen group. They're amazing. They do a ton of research. They're way better than I ever will be, and they have a giant list here. Another resource that is really interesting for user research, I feel strongly about very hands-on user research methods. So I think you get better results when you're talking to users if they're actually doing something. So I would look at Elizabeth Sanders. Her work is really great. She pioneered a lot of these like hands-on user research and collaborative research methods. Yeah, there was someone at the back that I just saw, and I'm kind of blind. Oh, now there's more. Oh, I think I saw you. You had the red thing. Yeah. One stop. Can everyone just be quiet for 1 second and speak louder? Thank you. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Okay, I get it. So the question is basically, how do you deal with the chicken and the egg problem with copywriting? So the copywriter needs to see the website or the app in order to put the copy in, and use the copy to design the website or app. There's two ways to deal with that. First is to write the content yourself. If you are designing an application which just has some buttons and a few strings, I've gotten to the point where I feel like just writing the copy myself sometimes is a better solution. Of course, the team will then talk about it and refine it. The second solution, which is the solution that works really well that nobody will like you for, is the put something in that the developer made. So the best way to get designers to give you the button is to put in a nice button that you made in Microsoft Word. Then they get all stressed out and they give you the thing. I would do something similar with the copywriter. You could, of course, just use something called lorem ipsum. You can Google, there's a ton of different kinds of it now. So things like cupcake ipsum, bacon ipsum. So there's a lot of like pre-generated text things. You could just copy that, paste it in about the length that you think you need, and then send it to the copywriter. That's probably what I would do. Yep. Anyone else? Yeah, last question. All right. I do not know. I think Pop App actually has a desktop application now. But if not, I would probably use PowerPoint. Oh, sorry. Awesome. What's it called again? Flint2? Flint2. T-O at the end. Cool. .org. Okay. Thanks, everybody. That was great.